Hey guys, welcome back to Your Human and You. Last time, Max was telling scary stories, and the third one sort of scared everywhere, and Princess Luna literally, I guess on reflex, gave a gave a teleportation spell, blasted Max with a teleportation spell, and teleported him into her sister's bedchambers. So that's kind of left us in an awkward spot and a cliffhanger, which I was like laughing about at the end. Anyways, let's hop right into it. Chapter 29, The Plucking of a Lyre. I think it's Lyre. I don't know. I know that I said that I would help you any way I could, but this isn't exactly what I had in mind, though I'm not complaining. I sat there frozen on top of Celestia, my mind trying to process what was going on. I was basically straddling Celestia on her bed, nestled snugly between her hind legs, and the bedroom as she was giving me wasn't helping the situation either. What? I just continued to stare at her, mouth opening and closing slightly. I could feel my face starting to heat up as my cheeks flushed. I finally got my brain working again. This isn't what it looks like. I scrambled quickly to get off my bed, but I was stopped by a hoof against my chest. Oh, of course it isn't, Celestia says softly, gazing up at me with a seductive look. We haven't even started yet. With that, she darted forward and slowly dragged her tongue across my cheek in a sensual manner. What? Excuse me? What? So does she want this to happen? Questioning this? Because Max isn't decisive about his feelings between a female pony and him. Like, he's indecisive, but what? She literally just licked his cheek. I'm so confused right now. The door to Celestia's room slammed open and I thundered out, startling the two guards stationed there. They both moved, their horns lighting up and their spears raising to point at me. I froze instantly, slowly lifting up my hands in a submissive gesture. Between the guards and the princess, at the moment, I had to take the guards, but the decision was unfortunately made for me. No! Stand down, Celestia commanded, stepping out of the room after me. I inhaled sharply as she approached, my body tensing. She looked up at me, the predatory smile still on her face. This one is mine. The guards' eyes widened and their mouths dropped as the princess lunged at me, hoofs outstretched. Turning, I sprinted down the hall, the clinking of my armor echoing down the corridor like thunder. Laughing, the princess chased after me, leaving the two speechless guards behind. This can't be happening, I thought as I raced down the hall. What the hell has gotten into her? You can run, my little humans, Celestia called to me in a sing-song voice as I ran through corridor after corridor. But you'll just be tired in the end, and that's not good for what I have planned. Oh, hell no. I rounded a corner and saw that set of stairs leading down to the next level. Taking the stairs 3 at a time, I nearly stumbled halfway down, but I managed to get myself upright. I took a brief second to glance behind me and groaned as I saw Celestia clear the stairs in one leap, her wings carrying her to the bottom. She saw me looking back and winked, giggling happily as she continued the chase. I returned my attention to back in front of me just in time to smash into a small pillar with a vase resting on top of it. As I staggered, the vase fell to the floor, but I was caught just shy of smashing by a golden glow with a burst of light. The pillar and vase returned to their original positions. Okay. Last time we left off, I don't really remember if he took off his costume. But I'm guessing yes, since he's literally running fast as he can, technically. I don't know what you mean to accomplish by smashing my stuff, Celestia saying, but that won't stop me. I just shot her the bird over my shoulder as I continued down the hallway, my boots crashing against a marble with each step. I don't think she understood the gesture, but it caused her to laugh all the same. The huge costume restricted my movement. Oh, so you are wearing the costume. Okay, the huge costume restricted my movement, but I was still able to run fairly fast as I shot past the doors and windows that sprinkled the hallway. Moonlight illuminating illuminating the area that the torches couldn't. With all the noise I was making as I ran, I was pretty sure half the castle was awake by now. Oh, Max. Oh, you gotta apologize. I'd almost made it to the end of the corridor when I was tackled from behind by something large and furry. Gotcha! I landed on the ground with a thud, my armor scratching the marble floor as I slid. My momentum carried me too far, however, and I grunted in pain as I smashed my head into the wall. As I lay there, dazed, with my head pounding, I heard someone gasp above me. Oh no, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take it that far. Shaking my head, I tried to push myself up, but was stopped by the weight of something on my back. No, don't move. A white hoof slid carefully underneath me and tentatively flipped me over. I blinked, staring up into the magenta eyes of the princess. She looked down at me, a concerned expression on her face. Are you alright? Ah, Auntie, a voice said from down the hall, causing both of us to freeze. My blood ran cold as a shiver ran up my spine, causing my already throbbing headache to worsen. That voice above me, Celestia's whole body tensed, her eyes widening. Oh no. No. I know who's gonna be if they're both. Oh no, not him. I hate his guts with a passion. Craning my neck back, I glanced down the hallway at the approaching pony. Auntie, I've been looking for you, Blue Blood drawled as he drew nearer. He paused slightly upon seeing Celestia crouch over something, but his eyes lit up when he saw that what was pinned under her. Me. The smile that spread across his face shall forever haunt my nightmares. Ah, what do we have here, Auntie? You do know how to make a stallion feel wanted, he said, licking his lips. I remember this human. Did you bring him back here just for me? He looks a little worse for wear, though. My heart rate increased, the organ thudding loudly in my chest. I made to move to get away from the bastard, but a pair of large white wings descended around me. I've told you before, Blue Blood, Celestia said, her voice cold. This human is not for you. He belongs to Twilight Sparkle. She paused at belongs. Probably trying not to insult me, but at the moment I didn't care. I was fine with whatever got me away from Blue Blood. Then why? Well, boy, shush the fuck up. Not, Celestia growled, her wings tightened around me. For you, Blue Blood. Blue Blood's smile vanished, replaced with a hard glare. He turned with a hoof, stalking back down the corridor. When he reached the end and turned around the corner, he looked back, his eyes lingering on me for a brief second before he vanished from sight. The white protective shield of feathers around me vanished as Celestia rose to her hooves. Her horn glowed as she used her magic to pull me to my feet. As I stood quickly, the blood rushed to my head, causing my headache to worsen. Groaning, I clutched at my throbbing head. Here, Celestia said softly, leaning forward, placing the tip of her horn against my head, closing her eyes as her horn began to glow. I sighed as a cool, tingling sensation ran through my head, dulling the pain and curing my headache. I tensed again as she opened her eyes, ready to run if she tried to pounce. Instead, she just gave me an apologetic look. I'm so sorry about that, she said, lowering her head. Not only for Blue Blood, but for my earlier behavior. I realized that the joke was in poor taste, but after seeing that look on your face, I could not resist playing with you a little. She blinked before her cheeks reddened as she realized what she had just said. I mean, I couldn't help but tease you a little. The blush on her cheeks darkened even more. Wait, I mean, you couldn't help but prank me? Celestia nodded, giving me a grateful yet sheepish smile. Yes, that, she said, refusing to look me in the eye. After all, it is nightmare night, and it's not every day that a human just falls into your lap, especially an intelligent one like yourself. An awkward silence fell over the hall, Celestia shuffling her heels, searching for something to say. I just stared at her, waiting. Would you kindly explain to me how you ended up in my bed? Celestia finally asked. A chuckle causing her to give me a curious look. A smile on my face, I proceeded to tell her about telling the gang scary stories. Luna's over-enthusiastic response to the last one. At the end of the tale, Celestia had a smile on her face as well. I wish I could have been there to see her face, she said with a chuckle. It's not often that a pony gets one over on Luna like that. She looked over my body quickly, eyeing my armor, before she looked back up at my face. How about we get you back to the library before every pony begins to freak out, okay? I nodded before my eyes widened as I realized something. What did you realize? Wait, you aren't going to send me back? Celestia's horn lit up as she leaned forward, touching the tip of it against my chest. I caught a glimpse of a smirk on her face before there was a blinding flash of green, and an invincible force grabbed me, pulling me backwards. I was immediately assaulted on all sides by an intense pulling and pushing sensation. I tried to breathe, but couldn't, get my lungs to expand as it felt like I was being forced through an incredibly tight tube. Then all the pressure relaxed. There was a second flash of green and a large belching sound afterward. I fell through the air, landing on my back with a thud. I stood up at the ceiling of the library, blinking slowly as the room spun around me. I can't believe she did that, I grumbled, swallowing to cause my ears to pop. Suddenly my vision was obscured by a mass of pink hair as a yellow face looked down at me with a worried expression on her face. Oh dear, Fluttershy said softly. Are you alright? I nodded my head weakly, the world still spinning slightly. With a little help from the soft-spoken Pegasus, I pushed myself into a seated position. Dude, yo, I don't know how he says this. Dude, you, Spike, you're screaming this, and I don't know how. Dude, how do you scream contractions out loud? Dude, I can't say it. Dude, you're okay. Spike cried, hopping onto Fluttershy's back in order to get a better look at me. After Luna zapped you, we assumed the worst. I got teleported to Celestia's. I began but showed off as I got a good look at what was happening in the room. Rainbow and Applejack were currently trying to hold Twilight back as she tried her hardest to get at Luna, an angry snarl on her face. Red sparks flew from her horn as she struggled to get out of her friend's hooves. Luna was in a similar situation. Rarity and Pinky were holding the Princess of Night back as she tried to get at Twilight. Amidst the chaos, the Ch.29 Crusaders were sitting on the couch, munching on their candy as they happily watched the scene before them. Their heads turned left and to right and backs again as they watched the two princesses shout at each other. They shouted at each other. Oh, god damn it. What's happening? I don't care what's happening behind me, but what the heck? Scared of you like a little filly doesn't give you the right to blast my human into oblivion, Twilight screamed at Luna, her wings flaring as she pushed against Rainbow and Applejack. Calm down, Twilight, Applejack grunted, her hooves digging into the floor. It was not our intent, Luna screamed back, trying to climb over Pinky to get at Twilight. It was only Pinky's earth pony strength that was stopping her. And what does thou mean? You're a human. We didn't know that thou has ownership over him. Well, yeah, he does. Yeah, she does. Friends shouldn't fight, Pinkie Pie cried, trying her hardest to hold on to Luna's forelegs. Celestia, send him to me, Twilight retorted, trying to duck under Rainbow's leg. He's been living with me ever since, and you just gone and killed him? We did not kill him, and last we checked, he was an intelligent creature. Thou have no right to lay claim upon him. Don't tell me how to take care of my human, Twilight shrieked, her voice rising in volume as it neared royal Canterlot voice status. As the two of them continued to argue, Fluttershy and Spike looked up at me, tense expressions on their faces. They were probably worried about how I would take this particular conversation. I couldn't care less. Actually, Twilight had been referring to me as her human for as long as I could remember, and in turn I had come to refer to her on occasions as my owner. Personally, I saw it much like a nickname. I knew Twilight didn't think of me as a pet, so it didn't bother me much when she used the term my human. Pushing myself up off of the floor, I shuffled over to the couch. The Crusaders glanced over at me as I approached, their faces lighting up as when they saw me. They scooted over, making room for me as I sat down next to them. Sweetie Belle held her bag of candy out to me, a small smile on her face as she hovered me some of her candy. She offered. I said hovered, like, no. As she offered me some of her candy, I nodded my hand in thanks, smiling as I pulled out a chocolate bar. Peeling the foil off of the chocolate, I munched on the candy as I watched my owner continue to struggle to get at Luna. The Crusaders snuggling up against me as they continued to snack on their treats from the night. Oh, Max, you need to stop this before things get intense. Sometimes a little chaos can be a good thing, I thought as I watched the two mares, completely unaware of my return, continue to fight. Okay, time passed. I'm guessing the fight's over with now, but I would love to see how that ended. Is that all of it? Twilight asked, lifting the stack of paper up in her magic. She flipped through it quickly, eyes scanning the contents as they flashed by. The smile on her face practically split her head in half. All of I can remember, I sighed as I tossed the used-up charcoal stick onto the table. My memory is a bit fuzzy, but the majority of it should still be there. Twilight squealed, clutching the stack of papers in her hooves, like it was a newborn child. Her eyes were sparkling as she looked at me, the joy and happiness practically bursting from her. I can't believe this, she said breathlessly. Actual organized moments of the... Oh, this is the next day or something? Actual organized moments of the music of harmony from a different world. I just leaned back in the chair, chuckling at her excitement, stretching. I groaned happily as my back cracked several times. I need to make several copies and send one to Princess Celestia. I'm sure that she would want to read this. Phantom of the Opera musical, she said, glancing at the front page as she looked for the title. I'm sure that Luna would like a copy too, especially the part with the music of the night bit. Looking for a way to make up for that little fight you two had, I asked with a smirk on my face. Twilight just ignored me. I'm sure she'd appreciate that some pony actually thinks that way about her night. She doesn't get enough credit for all her hard work. Most ponies just take it all for granted. I still can't believe that we don't have something like this here already. It's quite an amazing piece of artwork. You said that there's more like this, right? Her eyes focused on me with a predator-like gaze, the hunger evident. I held up my hands, leaning back in the chair. Yes, but calm down. Be happy I was actually able to write that one out. Yes, you're right, Twilight said, closing her eyes and taking a couple of deep breaths. I shook my head, laughing softly. I just spent the past couple of days after Nightmare Night and my impromptu trip to Canterlot trying my best to recreate, to the best of my memories, some of the musicals from my world. I decided to start with The Phantom of the Opera as it was one of my favorites and probably the one I knew the best. Yeah, she's probably trying to make up. It was a strenuous work. It was a strenuous work trying to remember each and every song and plot point of the play, as well as making sure that it was written in a musical manner. I didn't even bother trying to change everything into pony form, figuring that I would deal with that later. For now, the script would read someone, not some pony. If anyone had a problem with that, they could fix it themselves. When I had first sat down to write out the play, I told Twilight that I would not be able to write out the music itself. I could only give her the lyrics, nothing more. She has said that would be fine and that she didn't need the music to appreciate the story. Apparently, the music of tongue-tied. Apparently, the magic of harmony flowing through the land had other plans. Twilight had decided to try and sing the first couple lines of the song Think of Me. Just because she was curious, I wanted to give it a try. After she had sung the first few words, music started playing from nowhere. To make matters stranger, it was an actual music from the play. I basically just sat there, jaw on the floor, as Twilight sang the song perfectly, complete with music and timing. I was about to call bullshit on all of that, but magic is as magic does, and I ain't dealing with that shit. Besides, at least I don't have to worry about the score anymore, and I wasn't complaining. I could listen to Twilight sing for hours. She has such a beautiful singing voice. I've got to go make copies before something happens to this, Twilight chirped, quickly rushing out of the kitchen and heading towards her desk from my seat at the table. I watched her work. She laid out a stack of pink parchment next to the original. Her horn lit up, and somehow the text appeared on the blank paper as if someone had just written it on it. As she worked, she hummed happily to herself. It was basically a copy and paste spell. No matter what Twilight said about a photocopy replicator spell, I'm pretty sure she was just making up a name to try and cover up what it actually was. Control C, Control V. That was fine by me, however. I didn't have to write out the whole damn thing all over again. As I watched Twilight copy page after page, a small smile touched my face as she hummed. She would bob her head, swaying her flank gracefully back and forth in time with the song. Laughing softly, I pushed my chair back and rose to my feet, grabbing an apple on my way out of the kitchen. I bit into it happily, enjoying the wonderful taste. Walking up behind Twilight, I watched over her shoulder as she finished up with the last few pages. There, she said, wrapping a ribbon around the new stack. I'll send that to Princess Celestia along with my newest friendship report. Knock, knock, knock. Blinking, I straightened up and looked at the door. The apple stuck in my mouth. Twilight leaned around me, staring at the door with a confused expression on her face. Did any of our friends say they were coming over today? She asked, keeping her eyes on the door. I glanced over at the calendar. Nope, I replied before pulling the apple out of my mouth. There was a brief second of silence before the knocking resumed again. Come in, Twilight called hesitantly. The door handle turned and the front door swung open, allowing two mares to walk inside. The first one was a dark gray unicorn, her pink mane cut short, sticking out in the back. It kind of reminded me of Rainbow's mane. Actually, she was carrying a bulky pair of saddlebags on her back, filled with I don't know what. She looked around the library curiously in her bright green eyes. As her gaze landed on me, she froze, her eyes going wide. The second mare... Sup, tall stuff. Long time no see. Avera said, smirking up at me, her blue eyes alive with mirth. She, too, had a stuffed saddlebag on her back. She slipped past the first mare and trotted further into the library, closing the door behind her. Unstrapping her saddlebag, she allowed them to fall to the floor with a thud. The first mare just continued to stand there, staring at me with a disconcerting look. She mouthed something, but I couldn't make out what it was. Slowly, her saddlebag slid off her flank and onto the ground. Avera, Twilight asked, her eyes widening. What are you doing here? Princess Sparkle, Princess Sparkle, the black Pegasus said, turning to salute Twilight, the smile still on her face. Good to see you too, ma'am. First Lieutenant Aurora Noctis of the Coming Dawn reporting for duty. We were assigned by the princess to look after the human, Max. Wait, you were one of the volunteers Luna spoke of? Twilight asked, cocking her head to the side. Why did you volunteer? Aurora just shrugged, glancing around the library. You guys were fun to hang out with, and I had nothing better to do. And who's your, friend here? Twilight asked, turning her attention to the other mare. Aurora glanced over at the mare in question, who was still staring at me, chuckling softly. She nudged the unicorn with a hoof. She blinked, shaking her head before looking towards Twilight, a sheepish smile on her face. Sorry, ma'am, she said hastily, throwing a salute. Major Ebony Rose of the Battle Mages reporting in. We were instructed to check in with you upon arriving in Ponyville. Wow, Twilight said, glancing between the two. A member of the Coming Dawn and a battle mage. I didn't know Max needed that kind of protection. Is there something Princess Celestia and Luna aren't telling us? No, ma'am, Ebony said as Arriva chuckled. Most of the volunteers were just normal members of the Royal Guard, but Princess Celestia thought it would be good to send somebody who was overqualified rather than under. I still want to know why she thinks Max needs protection so badly, Twilight muttered under her breath. She blinked suddenly, her face scratching up slightly as she looked between the two mirrors. Wait, Luna said that there was going to be 3 of you. The third member of our entourage is part of the Lunar Guard. She'll be arriving later this evening, after the sun sets, Riva said. Until then, you're stuck with us. She gave me a quick wink, a smirk on her face. I stuck my tongue out at her before taking another bite of my apple. At least one of the guards is a pony we've met before. Riva's not too bad, but we'll have to see about the other ones. Well, it seems that the guards have arrived. I said that so weirdly. Well, it seems that the guards have arrived, Twilight said, turning to give me an amused look. I just chuckled, shaking my head. Looking back over at the new pair, I flinched back when I found myself staring into a pair of large green eyes. Oh, no. Okay, is she excited? Wait. She better not be. I don't know why. I jumped back with a small yelp, giving Ebony Rose an annoyed look. She just continued to stare at me, a large smile slowly spreading across her face. So, you're the intelligent human, she said gleefully. There's been rumors about you spreading through the guards ever since the human fighting was unearthed. Most didn't believe it was true, but that changed after Celestia asked for volunteers to guard a special human. Though I don't think most ponies know the exact details. Oh, she giggled, her eyes sparkling. This is going to be so much fun. Calm down, Major, Avero snorted, flopping onto the couch. You'll scare the big lug off before he even gets to know you. Ebony gave me a sheepish smile, rubbing the back of her head with a hoof. I just stared at her, unsure of what to think. She's kind of like Twilight when she first learned I was intelligent. I hope I don't have to answer a bazillion questions again. Sorry, got a little too excited there, but just think about it. The first ever intelligent human ever recorded, she said, backing up several steps. That's got to at least intrigue you, Aurora just shrugged, stretching out across the couch. I sighed softly, shaking my head. Yep, exactly like Twilight when she first found out. I looked at Twilight, cocking an eyebrow as I chewed on some of the apple. This is going to be interesting. That's the spirit, Ebony said, clapping her hooves together happily. Twilight and I both looked at her in surprise. You can understand him? Twilight asked. Ebony nodded her head. We were briefed on the situation, she explained. Part of the briefing was that need for us to be able to communicate with the human as quickly as possible. To that extent, we were all required to learn hoof language as well as human body language that indicates if he's frightened, angry, hurt, or in danger. After she said the hoof language part, I sighed in relief. Oh, thank God, I really don't want to have to write everything down. Yes, you're happy because of that. I'm still a little bit worried about guards here, okay? Although I think we'll have to get used to his version of hoof language, Ebony continued, rubbing her chin as she looked up at me. It's slightly different than the standard version, though the concept appears similar. Yeah, Twilight taught him this. I actually has fingers. I don't know how you ponies use hoof language, because you literally just have like the front hoof and then just. I don't understand how you guys use it, but okay. He had to improvise, as he's not exactly a pony, Twilight explained. It's fairly easy to understand, though, and I'm sure that you'll pick up on it in no time. Okay, typo? All you really have to do All you really have to do is... Okay, that's what... Before we get too comfortable, Ever interrupted, lounging on the couch, her hooves in the air and wings spread wide. We need to know what you've decided about our housing arrangements. Housing arrangements, Twilight asked, giving the pigs a confused look. Yeah, are we going to be staying at the library with you two, or do you want us to find lodgings nearby? Twilight chewed on her bottom lip, her head tilted to the side. Well, the basement isn't currently being used, she said slowly. Max was using it until, well, let's just say it's free. Would that work for you? Where is it? Aurora asked, pushing herself up off the couch. I pointed at the basement door, taking another bite out of my apple. Aurora trotted over and opened the door. Glancing down the stairs, she hummed softly to herself before nodding and closing the door again. That'll work just fine, she said, returning to the couch, upon which she flung herself again. We just have to do some decorating, and it'll be perfect. Well, I guess that's settled then, Twilight hummed. Any more questions? Aurora and Ebony looked at each other before shaking their heads. Nope, Ebony said, lighting up her horn and lifting her bag into the air. We'll just unpack our stuff and take it down to the basement. Nodding her head and smiling, Twilight turned back to her desk. Nodding her head and smiling, Twilight turned back to her desk. Now where was I? Wappa, 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 what? Wappa, what? What is this? That's just random. Everyone froze as we all turned to look at the door as someone on the other side hit it. That doesn't sound like knocking, it's more like someone slapping the door. Who would slap the door? That's my question. Ugh. What is it now? Twilight groaned, clearly aggravated, muttering something about too many interruptions. Twilight stalked over to the door and flung it open, glaring at the pony on the other side. Standing there, a blank expression on her face, was a mint green unicorn. Her mane was the same color as her coat, and had a white strip running down the middle. Twin golden orbs stared back at Twilight, blinking occasionally. She looks familiar, I thought, absentmindedly scratching my chin. Where have I seen her before? Lyre? Twilight asked. Speaking, I knew Lyra was going to be part of this somehow. I knew she was going to be a part of this. Lyra, Twilight asked, speaking slowly as she eyed the unicorn cautiously. What are you doing here? Last I checked, you were admitted to Ponyville's General Psychiatric Hospital after being arrested for human hoarding. Oh, that was Lyra? What? Well, it makes sense to me. That's where she was. The unicorn I saw get arrested my first day in Ponyville. Wait, I looked over at Twilight, giving her an incredulous look. And you know that how? I asked her. She glanced over her shoulder at me as she put a smile on her face. I received a report from the local guards. I told them to inform me of any incidents in Ponyville, seeing as I am currently a residing princess here. Right, I replied, nodding my head. It's hard to remember that you're actually a princess sometimes. What do you mean by that? Twilight asked, her eyes narrowing. I've caught you snuggling with your books before, I signed, a smug smile on my face. In the background, both Ebony and Rose and Aurora snickered behind their hooves. A small blush appeared across Twilight's face. Quiet, you, she said before turning her attention back to the unicorn on the other side of the door. So, Lyra, what can I do for you? Lyra, however, was no longer looking at her. Her gaze was now locked firmly on me. She stared at me, unblinking, the blank expression still on her face. Her golden eyes were hazy and unfocused, her pupils mere pinpricks. I felt a chill run up my spine at the look. Goosebumps slowly spreading across my limbs. What the fuck is her problem? Lyra? Twilight asked, again, waving a hoof in front of the unicorn's face. She didn't even twitch at the moment. Lyra? She is intrigued by Max. I heard movement behind me, and I glanced over my shoulder, looking for the source. Ebony had dropped her bag back onto the floor, her green eyes locked onto Lyra. Aurora had also moved, standing up from the couch, flexing her wings slightly. Both had serious expressions on their faces as they regarded Lyra. Swallowing nervously, I turned my attention back to her as well. If trained ponies are getting nervous, that can't be a good sign. Lyra still hadn't moved. Her gaze was still locked firmly on me. Lyra, are you alright? Twilight began, but was interrupted when the unicorn finally spoke. Statues, blood, and flesh to stone, she muttered, her voice soft and emotionless. I'm sorry, Twilight said, taking a small step back, her wings nervously twitching at her sides. What was that? I have seen the statues. They chilled my blood and turned my flesh to stone, Lyra repeated louder than before. Her eyes were still locked on me, unwavering, white on black, veins of stone, forever staring at nothing and succeeding. The three other ponies in the library just looked at her in confusion, Twilight taking another step back. However, at her words, I reeled back in shock. Instantly, an image of black marble statue filled my head, white veins running through its entire body, as its blank face stared into oblivion. How does she know about the statues? I thought. Fear was slowly welling up inside of me. I didn't tell anyone about those dreams. Lyra! Oh no. Lyra! I don't know why I screamed that. Lyra! Twilight said nervously, still backing away from the unicorn. Do the orderlies know you're wandering around, or are you supposed to be out and about? Lyra didn't answer. It didn't look like she had even heard Twilight speak at all. Instead, she just took steps towards me, her hoof entering the library. Instantly, Ebony and Aurora were in front of me, Ebony's horn glowing and Aurора's wings spread wide protectively. State your intention or leave, Aurora growled, lowering her head slightly. Once again, Lyra didn't reply, nor did her gaze waver. She had her eyes only for me. She took another step into the library, and this time I matched the steps, slowly backing up. I didn't know what she wanted, but she was creeping me the fuck out. The little voice in the back of my head was back. It was currently telling me that now would be a good time to run for it. Cease and desist. Cease and desist. I don't even think that's a word. Anyways, Ebony began, but that was all she could say before Lyra moved. I can hear them singing, she screamed, suddenly lunging at me. Their song burns my soul and sets my resolve ablaze. Ebony's horn lit up as Lyra flew through the air. A river leapt towards me, a snarl on her face. There was a loud bang, and the library was instantly filled with a thick cloud of smoke. Coughing, I heard movement all around me. There was a loud crack, followed by a groan as something hit the floor. Striking to the wall, I brushed my hand across its surface, searching for the window. Finding one, I threw it open and tumbled outside into the chilly open air. Coughing as I tried to clear my lungs, stumbled away from the library, blinking tears from my eyes. Another loud bang came from the library, followed by an inhuman scream. I didn't have time to wonder what was going on in there before the beast was upon me again. Leaping out the window after me came a disheveled Lyre, who her coat smoking slightly, and she had blood smeared across her forehead. I scrambled back, trying to avoid her, but I couldn't move fast. I grunted as her hoofs slammed into my chest, the rough, uneven edges digging into my flesh beneath the shirt. Unable to remain standing, I fell backwards onto the ground, grunting in pain as my elbows cracked against the hard ground. Their wordless screams, their sightless gazes, their unfeeling minds, she cried, her face inches from mine. Tears streamed from her blank eyes, dripping down onto my face. They scream in pain, in fear of the god that has abandoned them to the darkness. Forever lost they remain. She was so close that I could smell her breath as she spoke, the minty scent tickling my nose and making me want to sneeze. Lyre has lost it, and I'm a little bit I'm sympathizing with her right now. I don't know why, but I feel bad for her. I gazed up into her eyes, fear gripping my body as her horn lit up, her magic coursing through it. For a split second, the world seemed to freeze, and instead of Lyre standing above me, was Darkflare, his face twisted into a demonic grin. Then I blinked and Lyre was back, her golden blank eyes staring down at me. She opened her mouth to spew more insanity, but was stopped when a rainbow blur slammed into her, lifting her off of me. Rolling over, I saw Rainbow lying on top of Lyre, her eyes rolling in her head. What Rainbow was doing near the library this fine afternoon, I had no clue, but I was happy to see her. Max! Twilight cried, coughing as she leaned out the window. Smoke was still blowing out the library, wafting up into the clear sky. I prayed that a fire hadn't been started, as I was pretty sure that the tree would be gone in under a minute. I tried to answer Twilight, but Lyre was already getting to her hoofs again, shoving a dazed Rainbow off of her in the process. Her intention was on me again, her horn lighting up with a golden glow. What the fuck is her problem? Staggering to my feet, I barely had time to regain my balance before Lyre lunged at me again. Reacting on instinct, I threw a punch at the unicorn before my strike could land. However, my hand was encased in Lyra's golden magic. There was a bright flash, and the next thing I knew, my arm was stuck to my side, unable to move. I staggered backwards as Lyre finally reached me. She jumped up on me, her hoofs outstretched, and lashed onto my shoulders, causing both of us to fall backwards again. As I landed on the ground again, Lyre rolled off of me, her little horn hitting the top of my head in the process. Almost like a switch had been flipped, the pressure around my hand faded, and I was able to use my arm again. I was immediately on my feet again, not waiting around for Lyre to recover. I turned and sprinted towards the marketplace. The sound of pounding hoofs behind me told me that the deranged unicorn's already in hot pursuit. Fuck. I'd hurried down the road, Lyre breathing down my back. I tried to keep her out of my large blind spot, but that was rather difficult as I was trying to see where I was going as well. When you only have one working eye, your coordination skills tend to take a nosedive. Where the hell are my guards? Isn't their job to protect me from stuff like this? Rounding a corner, I drew a lot of attention from the gathered ponies as I dashed from the crowded marketplace, hoping to lose Lyre amongst the crowd. Hopefully she would be tripped up by someone or something, because I really didn't think I could win this fight. Rainbow Dash I could take. Hell, I could probably win in a fight with Applejack on a good day, but there was nothing I could do against magic. Leaping over a couple of ponies, I heard a loud crack behind me. Instantly, Lyre was in front of me in a flash of light. Her expression was still blank as her golden eyes locked onto me. I tried to slow down before I crashed into her, but couldn't in time. As I tripped over her body, she wrapped her hooves around my leg, pulling me down with her. My face smashed into the ground, a loud, sickening crack ringing through my head. Pushing myself up, I spat out blood out of my mouth, wincing as a tooth fell out as well. Blood flowed out of my nose, running down my face. I barely had time for my brain to register the pain before I was flipped over by a burst of magic. Lyre loomed over me, her horn aglow. What is happening? This is my question. I hear the ancient voice from the void, whispering softly to me in my dreams, she whispered, leaning down until her nose was pressed against mine. Pain fled across my nose as she touched it, causing me to wince. She continued, unperturbed by my pain. Its words chill my soul and turn my loveless heart to ashes. What's wrong with this mirror? Is she high or something? I gazed up at her, confused and afraid, as she stood over me, blocking out the sun. The shadows darkened her face until her eyes were visible, twin golden orbs staring down at me with such ferocity that I feared I might burst into flame, just from the intensity of her gaze. My heart was pounding against my ribcage, screaming as it tried to escape. My face throbbed in pain, blood slowly trickling down my cheek from my nose. Lyre opened her mouth again, but was silenced as a lasso flew over her head and wrapped her around her neck. She glanced down at the rope. A brief look of curiosity fashioned across her face before the rope yanked her off of me. Well there, partner, Applejack said around the rope in her mouth. Now let's just calm down and... Lyra snarled, her expressionless face becoming aggressive as she turned her attention to the counter. Whoa, Nilly! Lyra leapt at Applejack, her teeth bared as the farmer scrambled backwards, a foot from Applejack. Lyra froze in midair, her body surrounded by a rosy glow. That! Ebony growled, emerging from the crowd, her horn lit up with the same colored magic. Is enough of that! Lyra struggled in the air, flailing her limbs around as she snarled like a feral animal. As I sat up and held a hand to my nose, Twilight emerged from the crowd as well. She gasped when she saw me, and quickly hurried to my side, and worried expression on her face. Oh, sweet Celestia, she breathed. Are you alright? I began to nod, but changed my mind and shook my head instead as blood slowly oozed from between my fingers. I was not okay, physically or mentally. I just had a deranged unicorn chase me halfway across town for no apparent reason, all the while reminding me repeatedly that I had no real defense when it came to magic. I was just glad that Ebony had shown up when she did. Come on, let's get you back to the library and take a look at your wounds, Twilight murmured gently, slipping under my arm and helping me to my feet. The crowd of ponies surrounded us backed up as I rose shakily to my feet, my hands still pressed against my nose. Major, Twilight said, glancing at Ebony Rose, who still held the struggling unicorn in her magic. Take Miss Heartstrings here back to the why can't I say this word? Psychiatric hospital. Make sure you inform the orderlies of what has happened here and tell them to keep a better eye on her. This type of thing better not happen again, Ebony saluted, before turning and heading off towards the hospital. Lyra floated behind her. The crowd parted for them, ponies giving Lyra nervous looks as she floated over their heads. She struggled animatedly, trying to turn her body around in the air. Curse all of you! You are nothing more than pawns! Damned bones and cursed souls, doomed to tread the path to oblivion, she shrieked, spittle flying from her mouth. I have seen his hopes and fears and dreams. I have seen the past, the present, and the future. I know what is needed, what is required, and what is wanted. The humans are the key. Her voice slowly faded as Ebony carried her around the corner of a building, her ranting still echoing throughout the marketplace. I stood there, blood seeping through my fingers as I stared after the raving unicorn, a look of trepidation on my face. Her last words echoed through my head, slowly sending all a chill down my spine. The humans are the key. Beside me, I felt Twilight tense up, glancing down at her. I saw by the look on her face that she was troubled by what Lyra had said. As I was, the humans are the key. The ponies around slowly returned to what they had been doing, chatting quietly with one another. Come on, Twilight said softly, tugging on my hand with her wing. She looked at me, a concerned expression on her face. Library, I nodded dumbly, and Lyra began to lead me back to the tree. As we walked, the sky slowly opened up, and snow began to fall. Okay, time passing. So Lyra, you're technically the biggest pawn there, to be honest, if you're just gonna ramble on about him. Stop fidgeting, Twilight scolded, dabbing at my face with an alcohol-sodden ball of cotton. I hissed in pain, flinching away slightly at the sting. We were back at the library after the strange ordeal with Lyra, and I was currently sitting on the couch as Twilight tried to clean the several scratches and scrapes. I had acquired when I had high-fived the ground with my face. My nose, which luckily wasn't broken, had only just stopped bleeding several minutes ago. My whole head felt sore, and I had a headache slowly brewing. I winced again as a cotton ball came in contact with another scratch, hissing through my teeth. It stings, I sang, till I reached a hoof out, pushing my arms back down into my lap. I know it stings, she said, a sympathetic look on her face, but I need to clean out the cuts so they don't get infected. She bit her bottom lip as she floated the drenched white ball closer to my face again, gently cleaning another cut with great care. This might hurt a little, she said before her horn lit up. Pain lanced through my cheek, and I gritted my teeth as I felt something being pulled slowly out of my face. The feeling grew worse until I finally a small bit of gravel wrapped in Twilight's magic emerged from one of my cuts. Almost immediately, the pain ceased, leaving behind only a throbbing ache. Sorry about that, Twilight apologized, dabbing at the now bleeding scratch from the cotton ball. Don't want your skin to heal over that. It could have caused issues later. She gave the cut another once over to make sure she got all of the gravel. Once she was satisfied that it was clean, she did a quick double check over my face before floating the red-stained cotton ball over to the trash. Picking up some bandages off of the coffee table, she began trying to patch up some of the more severe scrapes. Hopefully none of these create any scars, she said softly. Her hooves were gentle against my skin as she worked, placing the bandages on the scratches. You'll start to look like you got into a fight with a timber wolf. Not a timber wolf, Arrow groaned. A demon. An insane little demon from Tartarus. The black Pegasus sat on the other end of the couch, an ice pack pressed against the side of her head, trying to reduce the size of the lump that was currently located there. From what she had said, she had gotten it when Lyra had smashed her head into a From what she had said, she had gotten it when Lyra had smashed her head into a rose. It had knocked her silly for several minutes and given Lyra an opening to jump out the window after me. Some guard, I chuckled, absentmindedly rubbing one of the bandages Twilight had just placed on my face. By the maker, Aurora groaned again, closing her eyes and leaning her head back on the couch. What was that unicorn's head made out of? Steel? I feel like I got hit by a freight train. Oh, suck it up, you big baby, Twilight smirked, not looking over at the distressed Pegasus. You're lucky that her horn missed your eyes. If her head had been a few inches lower, it would have been more than just a large goose egg. Besides, you're a guard, a member of the Coming Dawn, the best of the best. Isn't your job to protect Max? What happened? I wasn't expecting an insane unicorn with a head of titanium to headbutt me at a dead sprint, Aurora growled, cracking an eye open and glaring at Twilight. There was a brief moment before her blue eyes widened and a look of horror across her face. I'm sorry, Princess Sparkle. I meant no disrespect. She began to spurt it out before Twilight raised a hoof. She just shook her head at the Pegasus, a small smile on her face. Relax, Aurora, she said. You don't need to freak out, actually. I'd rather you treat me like a normal pony than a princess while you're staying here, if that's alright. I'm still not used to being treated like royalty, and to be perfectly honest, I don't like all the attention that comes with it. Aurora relaxed, but still looked a little uneasy, ruffling her feathers as she readjusted herself on the couch. Twilight returned her attention back to me, placing the remaining bandages onto the table. Alright, open your mouth wide and hold it open, please. My jaw cracked slightly as I opened it. The whole thing felt sore and stiff. Twilight leaned in, looking into my mouth and studying my teeth closely. After several seconds, she leaned back, her face scrunched up slightly. Yeah, she knocked one of your bicuspids out and cracked the 2 of your molars. It shouldn't be too hard to fix. Twilight's tongue poked out of her mouth as her horn began to glow softly, tendrils of magic flowing from its tip towards my mouth. Now this might feel funny, but just try to hold still, okay? As I kept my mouth open, her magic flowed into my open maw. My jaw and gums began to tingle before there was a quick twinge of pain in my upper jaw. Almost immediately, I could feel a new tooth slowly begin to grow into the empty spot, the feeling of the tooth pushing through the gum, causing shivers to run down my spine. Seriously, these walls need to be more thick, and my door needs to have something under it so I don't have to hear what's going on behind me. So, Max is growing a new tooth. Yeah. Eventually, the feeling causing shivers to run down my spine. Okay. Eventually, the feeling stopped as the tooth fit into place with a soft click. I felt it shift slightly, moving back into the proper position. Before 2 sharp cracks echoed from my mouth as Twilight's magic fixed my cracked molars, mending them instantly. There you go, Twilight said, stepping back as her horn stopped glowing. Now just like before, no eating anything hard or sticky for a few hours, and they should be good as new. I nodded my head, smiling weakly as I ran my tongue over the repaired teeth. As I tongued my teeth, Aurora continued her conversation with Twilight, shifting the ice pack into a more comfortable position. What the bug was the deal with her anyways? Aurora asked. I fought against many ponies before, but that unicorn was a different story entirely. She acted like a possessed mare. It's complicated, Twilight replied, chewing on her lip. Lyra has always had a rather eccentric personality when it came to humans, but it wasn't always that bad. Mostly it was just her going around making sketches of them. I'm not sure what changed, but she started to get more and more obsessed with humans. The obsession seems to have grown out of control, because last I checked she was placed under arrest several months ago for human hoarding. She had a rather large number of them, too. It was during the investigation that the guards discovered she's crazy, Twilight deadpanned. I know that's kind of mean to say, but she is. She claims that she was collecting humans to save them from the coming fire. But I couldn't tell the guard what the coming fire was, or when it would come. At first the guards thought she was just trying to talk her way out of trouble, like saying you were simply holding that illegal substance for a friend. Well, after several days, it turns out that was not the case with Lyra. Okay, excuse me, You say that like there's a story behind it, Aurora chuckled, wincing as she shifted the ice pack on her head. At the look on Twilight's face, Aurora raised an eyebrow. Is there? She attacked a guard when he was bringing a stray human in, Twilight said, her expression blank. She claimed that the human was screaming to be set free from his torment, and it was up to her to help. Oh, I see. Aurora's eyes splayed backwards as she gave Twilight a sheepish smile. Well, that would explain that. Crack! Everyone in the library jumped at the noise as the room was filled with a burst of light. Ebony Rose blinked into existence in the center of the library, an exasperated look on her face. She was clutching a hoof to her nose, which was bleeding. Ah, don't tell me Lyra got free from you, Ebony, please. No? Celestia, damn it! Aurora hissed, holding her head on her hooves. Warn us before you do that next time. I nodded in agreement, trying to calm my heart, which was trying to burst out of my chest after today's events. I was a little jumpy. How am I supposed to warn you if I'm not nearby? Ebony asked, cocking her head to the side as she shot us a confused look, the hoof still pressed against her nose. Aurora just grumbled, glaring at the floor with a small pout. What happened to you? Twilight asked. Ebony lowered her hoof, glancing at the blood-soaked fur before returning it to her snout. The unicorn kicked me when I was handing her over to the orderlies. It's nothing to worry about, though, just a little nosebleed. Anyways, the patient is back at the hospital. The orderlies didn't even know she was missing. Apparently, they had let some of the patients out into the yard after lunch, and Lyra had just happened to find a small hole in the fence that was big enough for her to slip through. Ebony shook her head and sighed heavily. The head doctor was very apologetic and told me that something like this would never happen again. Unfortunately, I doubt that, Twilight said, scratching up her face. They've had escaped patients before, but the worst was a mare who thought she was a dog. Well, according to the head doctor, Lyra wasn't even supposed to be allowed outside yet. Apparently there was a mix-up with the nurses about her schedule, and she ended up somewhere she wasn't supposed to be. He told me that they sorted it out, and so she shouldn't have a chance to escape again anytime soon. That's good, Twilight said, breathing a sigh of relief. We're just lucky no pony got too badly hurt. Aurora and I looked at each other, eyeing each other's injuries before we both turned and looked at Ebony, who was still trying to stem the flow of blood from her nose. She looked back at us before all three of us turned and gave Twilight a deadpan look. She gave us a sheepish smile in return, rubbing the back of her head with a hoof. Glad you care so much about us, Aurora muttered under her breath. I just shook my head, rubbing my right eyebrow with her finger absentmindedly. Ebony just removed her hoof, checking her nose, her eyes crossed. Oh, you know what I meant, Twilight huffed, her ears folded against her head. Anything else to report? She asked, turning her attention back to Ebony. No, nothing at all, the unicorn replied. Did you happen to mention what is wrong with that mare? Aurora called from the couch. Ebony just shook her head. No, she said, collapsing into one of the chairs. They just know that there's something up with her brain, but they don't know what. Probably smashed her head into too many hard objects. Aurora muttered under her breath as she closed her eyes again. Max, pretty sure you can figure that out, what's wrong with her. Just saying. Yeah, well, whatever is wrong with her, she sure can shout just fine, Ebony grumbled, rubbing in near with her free hoof. She wouldn't stop shouting the entire way to the hospital. Always the same thing, though. Something about how the humans were the key or some kind of crap like that. At that, Twilight and I exchanged uneasy looks, which did not go unnoticed by Ebony. What's wrong? She asked, looking back and forth between us. Her green eyes narrowing slightly. Do you know something about what she was talking about? It's not what she was saying, but the context, Twilight said, sucking on the inside of her cheek. I nodded slowly, licking my dry lips. What do you mean? Ebony asked, cocking her head to the side. Well, a little over a week ago, while we were walking through Canterlot to visit my family, we encountered a human that displayed some non-human-like behavior. Max tried to write it off as a simple territorial display, but I don't believe that was it, Twilight explained. It's just unsettling that something like that would happen just before Lyra goes and does this non-human-like behavior, Aurora asked, opening her eyes and sitting up slightly. The pain in her head temporarily forgotten. He screeched like a banshee before fleeing the scene, Twilight replied. However, it wasn't that fact alone that disturbed us. It was the fact that the entire time he was screaming, he was focused solely on Max. He was even pointing at him. And now the insane unicorn comes and is only focused on Max as well, Aurora said, nodding her head thoughtfully. Interesting. What happened to the human? Ebony asked, leaning forward to the chair. We don't know, actually, Twilight said, shaking her head. Some of the local guards chased after him, but as far as I know, they never found him. Max managed to get a look at the brand on the human's thigh, so I sent a request to the princess to check down his owner, but I have yet to receive word from them on the situation. Well, let's not blow this out of proportion, Aurora said, waving a hoof. We don't need all the details yet. There might be something simple that explains what happened. Is it at all possible that the human was infected? Twilight shook her head, chewing on her lower lip. No, he wasn't displaying any of the typical signs, she said. He wasn't coughing, wheezing, or staggering around. His eyes looked normal, and there was no sign of any darkening of the veins. I'm pretty sure this was something else entirely. Any idea what it might be? Ebony asked, her ears pricking up. No, Twilight said slowly, rubbing her chin with a hoof. This caused Ebony's ears to droop, and she slumped back in her chair. Twilight didn't seem to notice her disappointment. However, her eyes became unfocused as the gears within her head began turning. I knew that look. It was the look she got whenever she began to try and figure something out. The sound of the door handle clicking drew my attention to the front door, which slowly swung open, allowing moonlight to flow into the library. There was a brief pause before Mare slowly walked in. She had a thick gray coat, her fitlocks long and shaggy. She had a bulky pair of saddlebags on her back, indicating that she was possibly the third guard. Her mane was dark purple and messy, hanging around her face in long strands. She was a Pegasus, but instead of feathered wings, she had a pair of bat-like wings by her side. She walked slowly, a tired look on her face, almost like she had just woken up. As the door closed behind her, she paused and took a look around with heavy-lidded red eyes, taking in the scene before her. Ebony sitting there with a hoof pressed against her bleeding nose, Twilight who was staring off into the distance, a blank expression on her face, Vera sitting on the couch with an ice pack on her head and her eyes closed. When her gaze landed on me with my face covered in scratches and bandages, she blinked owlishly. What the buck did I miss? Oh, boys! Boys! We're back to Sunny! What's happening with Sunny? Will you stop fidgeting? One of the guards growled, trying to adjust the strange device strapped to Sunny's helmet. As he tugged on the device, it pulled on her helmet, which in turn pulled on her head and neck, causing Sunny to wince. Sweet Celestia, if you just stay still, we've been done already. Sorry, this armor feels weird. I'm not used to it, Sunny muttered, ruffling her feathers nervously. The unfamiliar weight of the armor adorned upon her body. The floor beneath her hooves vibrated as the engine rumbled, pulling the train along. As a Pegasus, she didn't like being cooped up in small places for long periods of time, and they had already been on the train for several hours. Her wings were twitching, eager for the open air. The guard just rolled his eyes, muttering something about civilians under his breath before double-checking Sunny's helmet. Satisfied that everything was in place, he released her head and stepped back, huffing. So what is this exactly? Sunny asked, raising a hoof up towards the device. It looked like a small, clear crystal wrapped around an ebony piece of metal. Every few seconds, a small red light on the side blinked. The guard slapped her hoof away, an annoyed look on his face. It's a camera, he growled, reaching to adjust his own, his gray eyes glaring up at it in distaste. It records what's happening around you and allows for the higher-ups to know what's going on the field. It's being transmitted back to Canterlot in real time. I've never seen the Royal Guard use them like this before, Sunny said, tilting her head slightly as she tried to get a better view of the device attached to her helmet. But it was almost just on the edge of her vision as she moved her head around, and she heard somebody clear their throat, glancing back at the guard. Sunny blushed as she realized how foolish she looked. The guard just continued to glare at her. That's because we're not the Royal Guard, came a voice from behind them. Sunny turned her head and glanced over her shoulder, only to see another Royal Guard standing there. She was staring at Sunny with a cold, calculating look in her red eyes. Her light gray mane fell across her face, parting only for her horn. Her coat was dark white, or at least the part that wasn't covered by her dark gray armor. The guard who had put the camera on Sunny's helmet saluted this new guard before turning and trotting away, leaving Sunny alone with this new pony. She shuffled her hooves timidly. Miss Breeze. Sunny's eyes flicked up to hers and she swallowed nervously. I am Second Lieutenant Ivory Pyre, and I'm currently in charge of this entire operation. Sunny nodded dumbly, not sure what to say. We normally don't allow civilians on ops, but I received word from the princess about your special circumstances. That being said, I was hoping that you could give me more information about where we are currently headed and what to expect, Ivory said, motioning behind her with a flick of her head. Sunny nodded again and fell in line behind her, stumbling slightly at the unfamiliar weight on her back. Why the buck do they make this armor so heavy? Reaching the end of the compartment, Ivory's horn lit up, and she swung the door open before stepping into the adjacent coach. The door closed behind Sunny as she followed her in. The new compartment was more roomy than the previous one. Guards sat on benches that lined the walls, chatting quietly with each other. There was even a pair playing with a deck of cards that one of them had pulled from her armor. Each guard was dressed in a similar gray armor. Unlike regular guard armor, which gleamed and sparkled, this armor appeared to have a matte finish. Small pockets covered parts of the armor, filled with a variety of accessories needed to complete any given mission. The cloth under the armor appeared to be a darker gray, almost black. The entire outfit appeared to have been designed with stealth in mind. As he passed by a small group of guards, Sunny noticed that each of their pauldrons were branded with a black symbol of a sun rising out of the horizon. Her eyes widened in surprise as she saw that. That particular symbol indicated that these ponies were Celestia's finest, the best of the best, hoof-picked by the princess herself. They were only known by one name, the Coming Dawn. The Coming Dawn. Okay. Sunny felt her heart rate skyrocket as she stared at the emblem, her head lowering and her eyes flattened against her scalp. When she had agreed to help Princess Celestia track down the rest of Darkflare's crew, she didn't know that she would be working with the Coming Dawn. She felt way out of her league here. They were professionals and she didn't have a clue what she was doing. Sunny just stride with it, I guess. Ivory led Sunny over to a large table centered in the middle of the compartment. Pictures, maps, and blueprints of buildings covered the surface. As Sunny leaned over to get a better look at some of them, Ivory cleared her throat as the Pegasus felt her throat again tighten as she saw that all the guards were beginning to cluster around the table. The guard with the cards was returning them to one of the pouches on her armor as she approached. Sunny could barely stop her knees from trembling slightly as they closed in around her. Her heart began to beat faster in her breast, and she could feel sweat began to accumulate on her brow. I'm an ex-convict surrounded by the best guards in Equestria. What's the worst that could happen? Alright, Ivy began, her voice echoing slightly around the silent compartment. Here's what I've been briefed on so far. This particular hideout is located several miles south of Dodge City, near the border to the Badlands. Since there is no real town near the warehouse, we are unsure of how Darkflare's crew were transporting humans in and out. Wait, what? Darkflare's crew were transporting humans in and out. That's easy, Sunny said, trying to keep her voice steady as she picked up on a photo and absently looked at it. It showed a skeletal human, nothing but skin and bones, lying on the bottom of a cage. She shivered slightly at the sight, bile rising in her stomach. How could I have ever been a part of this? Swallowing, she continued, the warehouse itself is right by the train tracks, Darkflare. Just pay the conductors to stop at the warehouse. Have them unload the cargo, then train will resume its journey. Silence fell around the compartment, causing Sunny to glance up. All the guards were looking at her, their expressions blank. Her eyes played back as she found herself the center of attention. As she swallowed nervously, her inner Pegasus was telling her to fly, to escape the confining space and soar away from all the stress. What? Sunny started, her eyes darting around at the blank faces. Ivy motioned with her hoof, urging her to continue talking. Well, Sunny continued, licking her suddenly dry lips. They use the warehouse as a type of storage building. That earned her several eye rolls from the guards, and she shrank back a little. They would house humans there that were either too sickly to be sold or too valiant to pass for pets. I believe that those humans would later be used in fighting rings, although many of the sickly ones never lasted that long. The warehouse is also used to store any valuable items we might find. Do they know about her past? This is my question, because she's doing this to get in good graces with the princess. What kind of valuable items? Ivory asked, her red eyes burrowing into Sunny. Anything we found that could have been worth a few bits, Sunny stuttered. The atmosphere was tense, and she wasn't liking it at all. Relax, Sunny. This is probably the princess's way of making you pay for your crimes. She wouldn't put you in a position that would cause you harm, would she? We spent some time in the desert and Badlands, so we could sometimes come across artifacts that could be worth a fair bit of money. Darkflare would store them here until such time as he found a pony willing to buy them for a high price. Anything that could be considered dangerous? Ivory asked. There wasn't anything like that the last time I was there, Sunny said. How long was that? How long ago was that? Just over 5 months ago, Sunny said, quietly lowering her head and blushing. This caused the surrounding guards to grumble, some shaking their heads, while others just sighed heavily. Sunny's blush darkened. So, you've got no useful information for us whatsoever, growled the guard who put the camera on Sunny's helmet. Sunny lowered her head further, nearly hiding under the table. Sergeant Cutter, that's enough, Ivory snapped, glaring at the stallion. We are very lucky to have Miss Breeze here with us. Any information at all that she can provide is useful and appreciated. The sergeant grumbled under his breath, and Ivory's glare intensified. I'm sorry, what was that? She asked, her voice deathly calm. Nothing, ma'am, the guard growled, not looking up. That's what I thought. Ivory huffed before turning her attention back to Sunny. Her expression softened slightly. Thank you for the information, Miss Breeze. Lighting up her horn, Ivy pulled a large building blueprint out of the pile of paper on the table. Laying it flat, she looked around at the guards, all of whom were glancing down at the building's layout. Who's downstairs messing with stuff? That's my question. Now then, Ivy began, her tone professional. We'll be arriving at the destination in a few minutes. We don't expect there to be any pony there when we arrive, but every pony be on your guard, just in case. We're going to want to move fast to try and capture any pony that might still be lurking inside the warehouse. So I want Sergeant Stacker, she motioned to a gruff-looking steel gray Pegasus standing next to her, to take his squad and enter through the upper windows. Excuse me, Sunny said hesitantly, raising a hoof up. Every pony turned to look at her, most of them glaring. She could tell they were annoyed at her interruption, and that didn't help her self-esteem. Yes? Ivory asked, cocking an eyebrow at her. You don't want to do that. You don't want to do that, Sunny muttered, staring at the table. She didn't want to look up and see their angry expressions. I really don't belong here. And why is that? Sergeant Carter growled again, gritting his teeth. Sunny wasn't sure what she did to anger him, but he didn't seem to care for her one bit. Because Darkflare probably has the windows rigged with booby traps, Sunny started, ears flat against her head. He was rather paranoid and made sure that no pony would accidentally stumble upon the hideouts without some form of repercussion. And you're just telling us this now? Sergeant Cutter snarled, his eyes blazing. Sunny whimpered, lowering her head down onto the table. I wish I was back in Ponyville with Max and Twilight, she thought, blinking tears from her eyes. I miss my friends. Sergeant, that's enough, Ivory roared, slamming her hoof on the table. One more word of you, and I'll see to you are sent back to Canterlot in a crate. Turning her attention back to Sunny, she said in a much softer voice, So, you're telling me that Darkflare liked to booby-trap the windows? Sunny nodded, still not looking up. Does that mean that the whole place might be one big trap? Sunny shook her head, glancing up at Ivory briefly. No, Darkflare despises a Pegasi greatly and would set traps that would only affect a Pegasus. Explosives by the windows, as well as razor wire and nets near the ceiling. Unicorns and earth ponies would have no problem coming and going from the warehouse without setting anything off. So, how would you have us proceed? Ivory asked, her voice neutral. Sunny was suddenly aware of all the eyes on her, and she felt her cheeks warm up again. As long as no Pegasi take to air while they're nearby or in the warehouse, then there shouldn't be any problems, Sunny said weakly, her head still resting on the table. Oh, and make sure to watch any and all cages, especially covered ones. Darkflare liked to keep infected humans as a kind of security measure. Ivory nodded at this, rubbing her chin with a hoof. Turning to Sergeant Stacker, she cracked a smile. Okay then, change your plans. Looks like your squad is going around the back and coming in the rear entrance, she chirped. Stacker gave her a brief salute. Sunny blinked, surprised that Ivory was actually listening to her advice. It seemed that she wasn't the only one that thought this was the way. She wasn't the only one that thought this way either. I can't believe we're listening to her, Cutter muttered, grinding his teeth together. What's your problem, okay? She might be a civilian, but bitch, she was a part of it. Now she's trying to repay her sins, okay? Fuck you. I don't care who the fuck you are. Just get the fuck off this fucking squad if you're not gonna be cooperative. Where the fuck the princess told us to just come into it and just fucking give you information, alright, you little bitch? God. Okay, so I can't believe we're listening to her, Cutter muttered, grinding his teeth again together. Ivory's eyes flashed as she glared down at the stallion. The crate, Cutter. The crate, she said, her tone ice cold. Cutter just growled before slinking off, his tail between his legs. Ivory watched him go before turning to the rest of the guards assembled around the table. A loud screeching noise filled the air, and they lurched forward slightly as the train began to apply its brakes. Okay, we have arrived. Stacker's squad will be heading in the back. The rest of you are with me. We'll be going in the front entrance. One of the guards leaned closer to the pony next to him. That's the best entrance, he whispered, earning a snicker from his friend. Ivory's ear twitched, but she just ignored the pair. Miss Breeze, she said, glancing over at Sunny. You'll be going with Stacker's squad and providing them with any help you can. I want you to be on your hooves, though. At the first sign of trouble, you are to get the buck out of there as quick as you can. Stacker and his guards will cover you if need be. Hopefully it doesn't come to that, but it's better to be safe than sorry. The train slid to a stop, the compartment's side doors opened, and the guards began to jump out. Sunny pushed herself up off the table and followed them out. The sky was overcast, gray clouds hanging low over the land. It was drizzling lightly, the frozen rainwater pinching off Sunny's helmet and armor. Her breath came out in a cloud of vapor in the cold air. She closed her eyes for a brief second, enjoying the feeling of the chilly wind on her face before returning her attention back to the job at hoof. Sunny's outfit felt bulky and heavy as she moved, more evidence that she was completely out of her element. She followed her supposed squad mates towards the warehouse, circling around the large building that sat right next to the train tracks. It stood nearly 3 stories tall, completely in disrepair. Some windows were boarded up, while others were cracked or busted. Paint was peeling off the walls, and half of the wood was rotten. The structure creaked ominously whenever the wind blew, swaying slightly side to side. The whole place looked like it was ready to collapse. Every pony was quiet as they stalked forward, using every bit of cover they could find. Sunny stumbled after them, trying to be quiet, but failing horribly as she nearly fell flat on her face several times. The last time she nearly collapsed because of her armor, but one of the guards grabbed her at the last second, picking her up and placing Sunny back on her hoofs. She blushed and hung her head, embarrassed, but the mayor just patted her shoulder, gave her an encouraging smile. It's nice to know that not all of them hate me, Sunny thought as the guard ducked back into cover. As they neared the back loading bay, Stacker slipped up next to Sunny, causing her to jump a little. How these ponies could move so silently in armor, she'd never know. Some pony needs to put a bell on you, she hissed, holding a hoof to her chest as she tried to calm her pounding heart. He just chuckled at that, shaking his head. That would defeat the purpose, ma'am, he whispered, casting a quick glance around the area as he walked. Sunny noticed that, unlike the rest of them, he wasn't wearing a helmet. Instead, he was wearing a cap, the brim of which came down low over his blue eyes, one of which had a small scar under it. Nervous? He asked, turning back to her. She nodded stifly, her wings ruffling on her sides. Don't worry, ma'am. We know your background. The princess informed us of that personally. Don't let that bother you, though, he added, noticing the fear on Sunny's face. No matter what, we've got your back. Nothing bad is going to happen while you're with us. He patted her back with a wing, winking at her. She gave him a small smile. Thanks, Sunny said softly. Just stick by us, and if things get hairy, keep your head down, and we'll make sure you get out all right, he said. His face then became stoic, and his eyes took on a steely look. Okay, I'm pretty sure Princess Equestria thought she was just gonna help with the process of finding them, not actually be a part of it. But okay, this is interesting to say the least. Motioning to his troops, Stacker moved to take his place beside the closed bay door. Breaching position, he hissed to the rest of the squad, and they all formed up around the door. Nervously, Sunny fell in line behind them, trying hard not to get in the way. Wait for the signal, Stacker muttered, holding up a wing as he grabbed the handle. There were several seconds of silence before a shrill whistle sounded from the front of the warehouse. Stacker slipped the door up several inches before slipping in a small cylindrical device. He closed the door quickly, and there was a loud thump from inside. Stacker paused briefly before flinging the door open with a grunt. 2 guards slipped inside the room before the door had even finished opening. Clear, one of them called out. Stacker motioned with his hoof, and the rest of the squad slipped into the warehouse. Sunny moved to follow, but Stacker stopped her with a wing. She looked at him, confused. Sunny moved to follow, but Stacker stopped her with a wing. She looked at him, confused. I think I read that wrong. Count to 10 and follow us in, he said before following after his squad. Sunny stood there by the door, silent and alone. From the front, Sunny could hear the sounds of Ivory's forces beginning to search the place. Sighing heavily to calm her nerves, she hung her head and closed her eyes and began to count. 1, 2, 3. Spread out, she heard Stacker bark from out inside, his voice muffled. Search for any pony that could still be here. Once this place is clear, we'll do a room-by-room search for anything important. There was a collective murmur of understanding from the guards. 7, 8, 9, 10. Opening her eyes, Sunny straightened up and slipped inside the warehouse. By the time she found the guards again, it was all over. The guards were quick and professional. They had managed to search the entire warehouse and had given the all clear by the time she had entered the building. Once she had regrouped with Stacker's squad, they were headed into the main room. Ivory Pyre was standing in the center, barking orders at her guards as they milled about, searching crates and boxes. As they approached, Stacker gave her a brief salute. Back rooms are clear, ma'am. No sign of any pony or any human. Ivory returned the salute, nodding her head. Very good, she said, looking around the warehouse. It appears that no pony has been here in a while. If the inch or so of dust is anything to go by, Sunny looked around and saw that she was right. Nearly everything was covered in a thick layer of dust and cobwebs. As Ivory and Stacker conversed, one of the guards ran up, saluting. Ma'am, we found 7 humans on the 2nd level and all in cages. 5 of them appear to have died of starvation, but 2 are still alive and very weak. Have the medic take a look at them. If they can be saved, get them onto the train and start caring for them immediately. If not, put them out of their misery as quickly and painlessly as possible, Ivory said. The guard nodded before trotting off Ivory's side, removing her helmet and running a hoof through her cropped mane. It appears that there is nothing left here that could be valuable, she said tiredly. They seem to have cleaned this place out before moving on. Orders, ma'am? Stacker asked, still at attention. Ivory sighed before placing her helmet back on her head and tightening the straps. Get everything that could be considered useful back on the train. Double check each room thoroughly and then burn this place to the ground. No point in letting them keep any place that could be of use later on. She had just turned to walk off when another guard approached, this one carrying a small dark box in her magic. Ma'am, the guard said, saluting, we found this on the 3rd floor inside of a broken safe located in an old records room. We're not exactly sure what it is, but it looks like it could be important. Ivory's horn lit up, and she took the box gingerly in her magic. Moving it in front of her face, she cast a scrutinizing eye over it. Sunny leaned in close as well, trying to get a better look. The box appeared to be made out of dark wood, silver trim. Running around the edge, I had steel clasps on the lid, keeping it shut tight. Although there didn't appear to be a lock, the box itself seemed to be in good condition compared to the rest of the warehouse. Why would they take everything else, but leave this behind? Ivory murmured, her brow furrowed, raising her voice. She addressed the guard. Has anybody tried to open it yet? No, ma'am, the guard said, shaking her head. You think it could be a booby trap? Stacker asked, staring suspiciously at the box. Ivory nodded, retaining the box in her magic. As Sunny watched it float in the air, she frowned, something nagging at the back of her mind. That box looks familiar, Sunny thought, rubbing her chin with a hoof. Where have I seen it before? What do you think we should do with it, ma'am? Stacker asked, tilting his head to the side. Ivy was silent for several seconds as she thought. Get it on the train and get a magical dampener on it, she finally said, levitating the box over to him. We'll have the unicorns back at Canterlot take a look at it. Hopefully they can determine if... Reaching out, Sunny grabbed the box out of Ivory's magic. Ignoring their protest, Stacker jumped forward to stop her, but it was too late. Sunny grabbed the lid of the box and with a flick of her hooves flipped it open. Both Stacker and Ivy flinched, but nothing happened. What the buck were you thinking? Ivory hissed, glaring at her. Well, what if that had just exploded in our faces? Stacker nodded in agreement, giving Sunny a hard look. She just ignored both of them and looked into the box. It was lined with crimson velvet, a small strange object resting in the center. Reaching tentatively into the box, Sunny picked the object up in her hoof, examining it closely. Sunny, if you're being nervous about this and you just do that, what do you think? What is it? What do you think they're gonna think? Okay, back to this. What is it? Stacker asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I don't know, Ivory answered softly, cocking her head to the side, a small frown on her face. I've never seen anything like it before. They both gathered around the object in Sunny's hoof, all 3 of them staring curiously down at it. It was a small, black rectangular object made out of a material Sunny had never seen before. The surface of the object was a slight glossy, almost like a mirror. A long, thin crack ran across the face of the object, splintering off into small cracks near the edges. The sides of the object were silver and had small ridges and bumps running across it at random intervals. Flipping it over slowly in her hoof, Sunny saw that the back was made out of the same material as the front. It was in slightly better condition than the front. However, as there was no cracks on it, 2 small circles located in front of the corners, one slightly smaller than the other, engraved onto the back, as well as were some words in a language she had never seen before. The one symbol she could make out, however, was a silver apple that had a bite taken out of it. That's the end. And goddamn, these chapters keep getting longer and longer. Lyra, seriously, I'm a little bit mad. I'm a little bit saddened that Lyra was used as the main, like as a pawn for Max to like realize like he was sent here for a purpose that Discord made for him technically. So I'm hoping at the end of the story he gets over all that, stays in Equestria, and becomes, you know, them and Twilight become a thing. Because right now, only thing, Twilight kissed him while she was dreaming about kissing him, which meta for me. And Max literally just picked her on the cheek and just left her to sleep after that. So they both care deeply about each other, but they both are hesitant because Twilight is thinking about what every pony would think about her, when in fact you're the princess. You're a princess, Twilight. You can do whatever the fuck you want. And Max is like being like, she's important to me, but she's also a pony, which I don't understand. Like, you're living in a world full of ponies, and you expect not to be attracted to them while there's humans literally being used as sex toys. Okay, that's all I gotta say. Anyways, guys, let's just see what Sunny's been up to. That's all I gotta say. Anyways, guys, thank you all for watching, doing like you guys do, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.
100,000 stories have filled my head as I look for the answer